All right, the last track I'm going to do here is something by a really talented guy, and this guy is absolutely amazing. Ever since I met him and heard him playing, his name is Louis Simao, and he's Portuguese. So we've got a couple of Latin things happening. Luis Mario Ochoa on the Cuban side, and Luis Simao now more on the Brazilian side. Luis is very remarkable because he's a multiple instrumentalist and vocalist. He sings, he plays guitar, piano, accordion. Of course, being the creature that he is, he'll play some percussion. Um, but what is remarkable is that he's Canadian and he was raised in Brampton. And he developed a real affinity and respect for his heritage. Um, because when you hear him singing Lusophone music, for example, authentic folkloric Lusophone music, I mean, it's the real deal. And it's astonishing to me that someone grew up in Brampton, which is just outside of Toronto, and developed this capability. But he's got, as I say, he's got a tremendous respect and understanding for his heritage, his tradition, and it really comes out in all of his music. I've done a lot of work with him in the past, and it's always a pleasure to play with him because he just knocks me out every time. So, and that's just one side of him, by the way, because he's also an excellent jazz musician. So I'm trying not to leave anything out. So Louis Simao, this is from his album, his most recent album. He only has a couple out. He did one with a great accomplice reed player, David French, called Failla. That was the first album. That was done quite some years ago. This is Louis Simao's own album, and it's a much sort of bigger project. He's done all the writing, all the arranging, and the title of the album is Alluge. It came out, I think, last year, maybe the year before. But it's a great album. It's a very interesting and diverse um, composition of things. Um, and this is I believe it's the opening cut from Alluge, and it's Brazilian in nature. It's entitled Cantador, which translates into a troubadour. One of Louis' um, uh, collaborators is an excellent musician himself, guitarist, singer, writer, and in this he's often contributing lyrics, and his name is Wagner Petrilli. So I believe Wagner probably wrote the lyrics to this one, and joining Louis on this is a woman who was on my last episode 2 of Essential Practice, which was Patricia Cano, great singer. So Patricia Cano is also assisting Louis Simao on this tune called Cantador. So this is more Brazilian in flavor. This one is harmonically much more challenging. Oh, and strangely enough, I'm actually on this cut, but I'll try and ignore myself. But I know the track is the places that I was playing were like fills, and they're like what do you call them, vamps, where the tune is resting or just roosting in one key area. I'm gonna have to sort of play the whole thing in this case, so I'm hoping I cut it all. Um, and I'll try and ignore myself in the background, as I say. So here we go with Louis Simao and Cantador. I better do that for the beginning of the track. Let me just think about that. Okay. So here we go. I don't want that. I just take another run at it.
Cantador pode jurar, se não ouvir
So I was actually imitating myself a little bit on the way out there. I caught a couple of figures. So that's a very beautiful tune. It's actually rather challenging to make all the changes, and I'm not sure that I did successfully. But there are tunes, there are points along the way in the tune where it sort of rested in a key area. I think a couple of them were E and D flat at the end there. And what I was also doing, pursuant to the tune I mentioned at the start, I was incorporating a little bit of bebop into the tail end there. Um, as I say, you have to do it with some care. But what's interesting about bebop is that it's a very relevant idiom. Most good improvisers spend some quality time learning something about bebop and developing some understanding of the vocabulary, because it's very, very rich in terms of melodic and rhythmic devices. There are tons of things that I've learned from bebop, transcribing solos, learning um, um, things by Bird. I got the, where is it here? I probably actually have it on my shelf somewhere. I never use books anymore. But in any event, I had the the so-called Omnibook by Charlie Parker, and I bought it in all three keys, C, B flat, and E flat, and I probably covered about a third of those tunes, working them very, very carefully. The ones in C I could play along with his recordings and see if I can match him in every nuance. First of all, learn it, and it was just like a classical study, learning those things, getting them under your fingers so that they sit properly, and then getting them up to speed, and then proceeding to play them with the track and see how close um, you can play with Bird. But the it's challenging stuff, admittedly. You might not be able to start with that. Um, but I learned a lot about melody and rhythm from bebop players, and I still invoke bebop. To me, it's a little like the blues, and with the blues scale, it's amazing where you can introduce it in situations where you might not expect it, and it can be very refreshing. And you don't do it sort of, you have to do it with a little care. If you're very crass about it, then it sounds crass, so like not done with any tact or delicacy. Same thing with bebop. And even if you're not going to become a bebop specialist, and you don't have to as an improviser, you can pursue your own voice and your own inclinations. But I really do feel that bebop is fortifying, no matter what you end up doing. It's fun, it's challenging, and it will really broaden your melodic and rhythmic scope. Learning learning something about bebop. And there's lots of great boppers, and whether it's Bird or Bud Powell or Clifford Brown, there's tons of them. I always like Cannonball Adderley. Cannonball Adderley is excellent because he's got that soul funky thing happening in conjunction with bebop. So Cannonball Adderley has been certainly one of my big influences. Now we got a long a ways from Louis Simao's Brazilian tune, didn't we? Um, but this is something of a free-ranging exercise.